After Jesus was baptized, he did something unusual. The crowd around John the Baptist was very excited. They had seen the Holy Spirit appear like a dove and had heard the voice of God calling Jesus his son. Maybe the Messiah, the one who would save Israel and bless the whole world, was finally here. It was the perfect time for Jesus to say, "Okay, everybody, follow me. I'm the Messiah." But he didn't. Instead, Jesus walked off into the wilderness, all by himself. He left the crowds behind and went out into the wildest part of Israel to be alone. You see, Jesus knew what was coming. He knew that being the Messiah, that saving Israel and blessing the world, was going to be very, very hard. He knew he couldn't do it unless he was very close to God, his Father. So Jesus went off to spend some time with his dad. For 40 days, Jesus stayed in the wilderness. He didn't eat any food. He spent all of his time talking with God, his Father. And at the end of the 40 days, Jesus and his dad were very, very close. But he was also very, very hungry. And then Jesus had a visitor. Do you know who it was? It was that sneaky snake, God's enemy, the one who had lied to Adam and Eve way back at the beginning so sin would ruin God's world. God's enemy knew Jesus was hungry. He knew the big things Jesus had to do would be hard. God's enemy showed up to tempt Jesus with ways to make things easier. "If you really are God's son," the enemy said, "why don't you just turn these rocks into bread? Then you can eat." "No," Jesus said, "I don't live by bread. I live by the words that come from my Father." Then the enemy took Jesus to the highest place in Jerusalem, the very top of the temple. "Jump off," he said. "God will send angels to save you, and then everyone will be impressed, and they'll want to follow you." But Jesus replied, "That is not God's plan. Don't test God with tricks." Finally, the enemy took Jesus to the top of a high mountain. Jesus could see all the kingdoms of the world. "Do you want to rule all of these kingdoms?" the enemy asked. "I can make that happen. All you have to do is bow down and worship me." What should Jesus do? God wanted Jesus to be a new kind of king, a blessing for the whole world. Jesus knew that God's plan was going to be very, very hard. God's enemy said he could make it easy. Wouldn't that be better? But Jesus knew he was talking to a liar. "I will only bow to God," Jesus yelled. "Leave me right now." And the enemy left. He had tried his very best to fool Jesus, the same way he had fooled Adam and Eve many years before. But Jesus was too close to God, his Father, and being close to his Father made Jesus strong. God took care of Jesus because he was God's son, and God loved him very much. Now it was time to save the world.